Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. History is currently being made. It seems as though the Democrats knew what they were doing. The Democrats knew that it was the right decision to pull out of Florida. Everything that we covered last week from the Democrat strategists in the state, claiming that it's pretty much doomed for Democrats and they know it, that the state is essentially lost. Well, it's all true. In fact, it's so true that something historic just happened. One of the greatest and fastest political shifts in such a key, massive, huge population state. If I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head, I think there's 21 to 22 million people in the state of Florida, and it's a pretty small place. Geographically speaking, a massive population center, and it has shifted so incredibly over the last 4 years, since 2018. Seismic political shifts like this don't happen very often, and they especially don't happen in such short periods of time and in such massive numbers. We're talking about a voter shift of nearly 1 million voters in 4 years. And not to mention the hundreds of thousands of people who are moving to Florida, helping grow that trend. I'm pretty sure after the census in 2020, the great state of Florida gained an electoral vote from 29 to 30. It's becoming Texas 2.0, except it's its own beast entirely. And yesterday, something incredible happened, which really takes it to a whole other level. Historically, left-wing Miami-Dade County is on track and on the verge of becoming majority Republican, one of the first big major Democrat metropolitan areas. This is absolutely insane, friends, but it's also not exactly surprising. We've been expecting it, but honestly, I don't know if we were expecting it this soon. Let me show you guys what's going on. We've got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, take a look at this headline right over here. Florida GOP takes the lead in early voting in traditionally blue Miami-Dade. The Republican swing was interpreted as a sign of support among the region's Hispanic voters for Governor Ron DeSantis and a lack of enthusiasm for his Democrat challenger, Representative Charlie Crist. In an extraordinary sign of trouble for Democrats in Florida ahead of Election Day, the number of registered Republicans voting in Miami-Dade County surpassed Democrats on Wednesday, one day after President Joe Biden visited the area on a campaign swing. Is it possibly connected? Is there a correlation here? Who knows? It's possible that Joe Biden showed his ugly mug and people got a serious reality check. Oh, we better head to the polls if Charlie Crist is associated with this clown. But of course, jokes aside, on Wednesday in Miami-Dade, more Republicans have voted in early voting and vote by mail than Democrats. The most populous county in Florida, Miami-Dade, with more than 1.5 million registered voters, has been a Democratic stronghold along the state's Gold Coast with largely blue Broward and Palm Beach counties for a generation. They had provided a bulwark of reliability, Democratic votes against less populated Republican counties across Florida, including most of the Panhandle and Southwest Coast. Less than a week before Election Day, Miami-Dade was looking more red than blue. This is not what we expected, said Christine Alejandra Olivio, the Democratic House candidate to Florida's 26th congressional district in South Florida. This is worse than what we expected. We're getting our butts kicked right now. She was running against Republican Representative Mario Diaz-Balart, the longest serving member of Congress in Florida. Registered Democrats still outnumbered Republicans in Miami-Dade, but the latest figures indicated Democrats, at least so far, were voting in far fewer numbers than their GOP counterparts. And boy, oh boy, is that an important statement or sentence right over there. It's what we've been telling them forever. Look, we already know that Democrats outnumber Republicans. Not so much in the whole state of Florida, but especially in these big metropolitan areas. And in most states, in every single swing state, there are more Democrats than Republicans. We know this. Well, the polling data hasn't been accounting for the most important factor here: voter turnout and enthusiasm. There may be more Democrats, but the question is, are Democrats going to go out of their way to vote? In this election, I never thought so, and it's looking like that's the case. Democrats may have a 2-3% lead in a couple polls here and there in important races. The question is that going to hold up? Well, if things go the direction of Miami-Dade, the answer is no. This is vote by mail in early voting. This is usually where we see Democrats pull ahead in massive margins. In some cases, you see Democrats up hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of votes in early voting and vote by mail. What does that tell you if in blue Miami-Dade County, in early voting, Republicans are leading? Well, it tells you two things. The first is that this red wave is very likely to be much bigger than anyone anticipated. It's looking like the red tsunami is here, and secondly, it's looking like Miami-Dade is falling out of the Democrat grasp. We have been seeing gains every single election cycle, from Donald Trump's incredible victory in the great state of Florida in 2016, which he of course expanded on in 2020. Well, just 2 years later in 2022, that margin that Donald Trump was closing in on in Miami-Dade might finally be flipping. Democrats still hold the voter registration edge. The question is, for how long? If things keep going the way that they're going in Florida, it's going to be a Republican stronghold that Democrats will avoid or reluctantly have to spend money in and campaign in. And what does that mean? That means 30 electoral votes moving forward in that Republican column, joining in with Texas. That means Texas and Florida combined are now more powerful than California. That is huge. And if Republicans can start relying on those electoral votes, well, it gives them a tactical advantage moving into general elections. Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, whoever's going to be the candidate moving forward, won't have to spend as much money in the state of Florida as they will elsewhere. They're going to be able to really target their resources in places like the Rust Belt, in places that win elections. Historically, Florida has been one of those places. You need to win Florida to win the country. Generally speaking, except for in 2020, wherever the state of Florida moves politically, whether right or left, the election results tend to follow. Well, if that trend continues moving forward, that means more states might follow. And of course, we've been covering this phenomenon for a while. Look at Arizona. They might be voting Republican across the board. We know Nevada is trending towards the GOP. Virginia even shifted spectacularly in 2021. Georgia seems to be moving back to the right after that little blip in 2020. And really the question is Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan going to follow the trend? There's some serious implications here, folks. And really the craziest part is that it's a big metropolitan area. That right there is what's most astonishing. What if more big cities continue to trend rightward? What if Philadelphia starts to move right? It sounds crazy and clearly it's unlikely, but what if it starts to happen even on a smaller scale? What if more and more people are waking up to the obvious Democrat failures in Democrat big cities and they start to trend? Well, small little micro trends in big cities makes a big difference on a macro view on the election map. The reality is Miami-Dade only had to shift a couple percentage points for Republicans for Florida to become a Republican stronghold. Well, it's the same thing in Georgia, it's the same thing in Pennsylvania, the same thing in Wisconsin, and maybe even Michigan. Michigan's a little bit of a different scenario with Detroit, but small little differences will change the map forever, just like we're seeing in the state of Florida. And we're learning that all you really need is good leadership. If a couple of these governorships flip red, and those governors start really setting the ship in the right direction, well then a lot of voters are going to start to be convinced. Just like we saw with the Ron DeSantis effect in Florida. I mean, even Democrats can admit it. Here's former Florida Democrat Mayor Philip Levine admitting that Florida under Governor Ron DeSantis' leadership has been hitting on all cylinders.
Truthfully, I think it's too little, too late. And President Biden coming here is fantastic. But unfortunately, the Democratic Party of Florida has been in a semi-conscious coma for a long period now. And I don't think a week out that's going to do much, if anything whatsoever. I mean, think of what's going on. As far as the messaging, Florida's been hitting on all cylinders. And I'm a Democrat telling you this. What are Floridians concerned about? They're concerned about inflation. They don't pin that to the current administration in Florida. They pin that to Washington, to the Democratic Party. They're concerned about immigration. They're concerned about crime. Think about what's going on in our country right now. People are getting mugged. They're getting mugged on the city streets, but they're also getting mugged when they go to the grocery stores. So that is something that they're pinning on the Democratic Party in Washington. They're not pinning it on the Republican Party that's controlling the state of Florida. So I don't believe that'll have any impact, if any at all, at this point and so late in the game.
Well, need I mention that the state of Virginia now has Glenn Youngkin leading them. Arizona's on the verge of electing Kari Lake. Tudor Dixon stands a chance in Michigan. Tony Evers is about to be unseated in Wisconsin from what I'm seeing. Well, if they could do a good job, and it really shouldn't be that hard to outperform Democrats, we might be seeing a totally different election map moving forward. We might be seeing the doom, the demise of the Democrat Party in the near to short term until they really reform and fix their image problem and their policy problem. We'll have to see exactly what happens. I mean, a lot of this is speculation. Most of it is total fantasy, to be completely honest with you. but it's not exactly impossible if other leaders in other states follow the great state of Florida's incredible transformation. Some historic stuff, folks. Let me just repeat. Republicans are leading early voting and vote by mail in blue Miami-Dade. If the Democrats weren't in full panic mode before, let me tell you, the panic is setting in. That's what I got for you guys on this one, though. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.